court cases, and the last thing a journalist wants is to go to court as a witness. I am paid to be a journalist, and I am a journalist. Going to court to answer questions every time I do a story is the last thing any journalists want. But this is the reality of our business. Now, just to summarize, because of time, where will we find sources or records? Again, goes back to what I've just mentioned. What is the process for vetting sources and records? I will agree that sometimes we have challenges with that. It takes time to do vetting, and sometimes when you're vetting, you may reach wrong conclusions. We admit, as journalists, sometimes we've made mistakes with the stories we do. We do our own internal processes where we do our own audits, and we admit, here we were wrong. We may never openly say that we were wrong, and that's the reason why when we offer an apology in the newspaper, when we get a demand that we need to apologize over a certain story, you'll always find it in page 4, somewhere right at the corner. And on TV it's difficult because it's an admission that we have failed. But all these things are learning lessons during our processes and how we do stories. Then the other, let me just finish this very quickly before I go to an issue. What is the potential impact, legal hurdles, risk assessment? Now, when we talk about the criminal justice system, this is where, personally, I find it challenging. The honest truth is, it's so broken, and I'll just wind up by giving this one example. One time we were going to cover a story. We have police officers who are accompanying us to cover the story. So we go to the home of this doctor who's been doing very crazy things. We all know his name, Dr. Mugo. So what happens is we go with the officers from DCI. They have the brief of the story we are working on. We want to confront this guy, but because he's dangerous, we can't go by ourselves. So we go with the officers. They want to make an arrest. So we are embedded to go with the officers. So I observed something that was so disturbing. And it's something that frequently happens. So as we go to where this doctor allegedly has an office, we find the guy is not there. So what do the police do? They go to where they believe he lives. So we go to his home. They knock on the door, no one is opening, but we can tell there's someone inside. So as they're trying to, bang the door, calling out whoever is inside to open, the person doesn't open. They break the windows. They throw in tear gas. Eventually, they break the door. They go in. They start arresting everyone who was inside. And I'm following them from a distance. It was so chaotic, you take a step back because all of a sudden they change. I don't know what happens, they change. So they arrest everyone in the room, including a young lady who genuinely we could tell she was just innocent. Then we go to the clinic. We find there's a lady who's being treated, and the lady works for Farmer's Choice. You can clearly tell the lady as she's explaining, I've just come in here, I'm innocent, what is going on? She's confused. The police arrest her, they take everything, they open drawers, they take records, then they push everyone into the cars to go to the police station. I took a step back, I called the person who was leading them, I told them, I think this is not right. That lady you've arrested, honestly, she's innocent. The person we are looking for is not here. But the way you've handled these people, the lady is frightened. She has a baby she's going to feed. She wants to call Simo Menyanganywa Amipigwa. She's been bundled into the car. What was now shocking, as they departed, because now it was out of my control, the next day, looking at the charge sheet, all of them have been charged with the same offense. I know as a journalist, because I was there, this is so wrong. This is just one incident I'm pointing, because when you're talking about the criminal justice system, your end is just one small piece of the puzzle, but it's broken from this other end. And the unfortunate thing is, these are events that happen every day. I talk to victims, I talk to people, they inbox us as journalists, we cover these stories. Then what we realize is, if one end is broken, if this table is broken on one end, No matter how much you're trying to fix this or other end, because we are saying we want to become the 21st century what? Yes. So on one hand, that's what you want to become. On the other hand, it's so broken because at the end of the day, you depend on these guys to bring you these cases. So we are having an issue in the criminal justice system, and as investigative journalists coming in, we are caught smack in the middle of this. At the end of the day, we just end up doing our job because that's what we are paid to do. We leave everything else to maybe human rights group, to maybe Hussein coming on board, and now the process takes another shape. So those are some of the challenges that we encounter as investigative journalists in covering this story. What we seek is very simple. We don't seek favors. We just seek the truth. And the truth is when I pick my phone and try to call to get information, it's nothing personal. It could be something that I want to flag up to even help you, but because of these issues we've had, the frosty relationship, the mistrust, you don't pick the call. I have to do the story. Tukutane koti baadaye. That's sometimes what we say in the newsroom. So with those very many remarks, I just hope that through this workshop, we can begin a journey to just create those relationships, exchange notes, and we are on the back end of trying to see that people, because the stories we do, they're about people. They're just about people. They're just about people. So at the end of the day, our core business is to see that we bridge that gap, and it's never that serious and it's never that personal. Thank you very much.
Give me a coffee. That's not enough, Bana. Yes, there's one thing that maybe Okari didn't tell you. Most newsmakers will tell you, I have no comment. Do you know if you have no comment, that's a comment? If you have no comment, it is a comment. And now, you know, journalism is double-edged. Sometimes you hear of yellow envelopes. By the way, Helen, do you know what it means? A brown envelopes. No, I'm using the word yellow. Forget about brown. Now this the yellow. What is it about? When one talks of a yellow envelope in terms of media, what wa magazeti na radio? Any idea? Corruption. That's corruption. Ideally, the media has been accused of kupokea kitu kidogo, mtaendaje? Hello, colleagues, am I speaking something? Yes. And then there's also what we call code of ethics. That in the event of our work as journalists, we sensationalize issues. We blow things out of proportion. We misquote people. And sometimes, Bwana DPP has no alternative. Wakati anapokea nini file, he takes us to court. And now I want to invite one man who has so many hats on his head. He is a journalist, a trained one. He is a media scholar, and his bias is in ethical journalism. Dr. Nyakundi Nyamboga is a lecturer at Moi University, but as I said, above all, he is a lawyer. He's a member of the Land Friends. I don't know how land they are, but he's a member of the Land Friends. And Dr. Nyamboga will come to tell us what is expected, what journalists expect from the DPP, and in particular, hinging on ethical considerations. And by the way, the little English I'm talking about is from Dr. Nyamboga because he was my lecturer at postgraduate. Hebu mpigie mwalimu wangu makofi tafadhali. Karibu sana daktari.
Thank you, Wanyama. Good afternoon. I know the sugar levels have gone down, have they? Stanley, are you still here? Okinyi, are you still here? Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Bwana DPP. My instructions are limited to sharing with you what the Fourth Estate expects of your office if you are going forward in terms of building sustainable relationships. And because I'm a lecturer, I can speak for hours on end. They have given me points, so that I'm limited on what to say. So the first point, which has actually already been shared by Paul Ilado, it has been shared by Dennis Okali, it's about accessibility. Can your office be accessible to them indiscriminately? And I emphasize indiscriminately. Because you realize there are many media houses, media outlets that are represented here. So if in the past you've been dealing with what traditionally referred to as mainstream media, then you had better begin thinking in terms of small or subsidiary streams of the media. It's important. Because if you are covered favorably or unfavorably by all these, then of course the reach is wide. And I think that is even more important. So how do you become accessible? Of course, every time you will not take a call as DPP from each of these people. If you could create a unit or an individual who then deals with the media, life will become very easy, because what the media is looking for is information to disseminate. They are not looking for any other favors. They would not call you to say, that is not what they are looking for. They just need information so that they have complete stories. Otherwise, the moment they don't get your version, then what you expect are one-sided stories. And journalists, by training, that's what I do. I do training of reporters and editors. I have so many students here. So all we emphasize is complete storytelling. It has to have all sides. But the moment you block that other side, then that is what you see every day. I don't want to give the example of Omari, and because from my experience, if you want all sides of a story, especially if you have attended, say, a trial, and there are some things you missed from the prosecution, and you need clarification about this. Half of the time, I don't know whether things have changed, but half of the time, the prosecution side would be very reluctant to speak to a journalist. And all the journalist wants is to understand what was going on, because we are also not similarly endowed. It is also possible that there are certain things I can miss as a journalist, especially if you went into too much legalese, and I have serious issues in understanding what that is. Sometimes you just want a small clarification so that you're able to write your story. But once it does not come out, then I think that is a challenge, because you don't expect then, for example, the journalist to say, let me call the DPP, yet there was a state counsel or there was a prosecutor in court. The DPP may not know, but if you speak to them, then that helps. The other thing that I want to emphasize is regular briefings on some of the things that you do. Don't wait for the media to come to you. Is it possible for you to be proactive? Are there certain matters that you are handling that you think the media needs to appreciate, especially the context and the status of that matter? Sometimes you may discuss with the media, not necessarily that they are going to report that which you are saying, but you are preparing them to understand what the issue is, so that if it comes to the fore, then it is easier for them to appreciate what you are up to. They are also interested in an update on high-profile cases. Some of them are saying they came to this seminar to discover what the update is, the status of many of the cases that you are doing. They may be on your website. It is possible they would be on your website, I don't know. But you can trust me that probably somebody has not checked your website. So if there was a way in which you could then update people on what is going on, because they are very important, of course, in sharing, so that people don't say, oh, the DPP's office is sleeping. This matter has been caught for so long, and they think that you are the problem, when probably the problem is the courts themselves. The other thing that they are interested in is having bonding sessions. I'm using the words bonding sessions, where this basically means informal and perhaps regular meetings. They may not be physical, they can be virtual, but at least some level of engagement. If you're going to understand how the media works, they also tell you what it is, but I can see an example of cafes that you run, but I don't know whether the cafes target the media people or they're generally for everybody. But if it's possible then to engage the media at that level, then it's the right thing to do. Your website, I don't know how regularly it is updated, but they have an issue with it. So they are saying they require updates on the website regularly. And please, if there is information then they need, make it available as and when they require it. Hold more workshops for sensitization. You are meeting editors. Editors are not reporters. So probably start thinking about how do you meet reporters. The people who sit here, I think that's what Paul was saying, they are the ones who make the decision to charge. In this context, they are the ones who decide whether a story has to see light or not see the light. But there are those who then you would refer to as investigators, the ones who source for this information and bring it to the editor to make that decision. You need to meet those people. They are key, they are important, so that then you also get their mindset if you have to enjoy that coverage. Or if you want many people in the country to know actually what the DPP's office is doing. Of course, regular updates in cases, I think that is something else, that especially public interest cases or high profile cases, that I don't know how you'll do that, but those updates are important. But from our point of view, if you had a special desk that can avail this information, even when it is not solicited, that can communicate to the media houses that this is where we are in this case. And of course, we have the issue of sub judice, but I think probably we are overusing it. These are not my views, but I can associate myself with those views that sub judice is used so blanketly that you cannot tell a journalist what the case is about because of the sub judice rule. I'm not sure that is what it means, but my thinking is that you cannot comment on the merits and demerits of a matter when it's alive or when it's live. But to tell somebody what happened in court on a particular day, I don't think that is sub judice. So can we, as the prosecution, run away from the blanket use of sub judice so that the journalists also benefit from your expertise? Remember, law is not common sense. So you need someone else. I mean, if someone has not been initiated into it, then there is need to take them through the baby steps. Remove the gag orders. I don't know whether they exist. I think this was was raised yesterday, and the DPP said he doesn't remember obtaining a gag order. Do they exist or they don't? I got this from one of you, but I don't know. But a suggestion has been made by the Media Council here that if you are unhappy with what the media is doing, please go to the Media Council and complain. In other words, they are saying they don't want to be dragged to courtrooms, or they don't want to be a subject of conversation at courtrooms. I think that is the point that they are trying to put across, and I agree with them, but I don't think you even need to go to complain to the Media Council. Please pick up your call and call this individual and discuss. If you are not happy or you don't want them to highlight a particular case and you have genuine reasons, pick your phone and talk, discuss, and agree on what to do. Very finally, they are saying you are too economical with information. Maybe you give them too little, even when they need a lot more. And journalists discuss the meat. They need the flesh, they need the meat, for them to have a story. So if they are asking you for information, please give them, especially information that has already been tendered before a court of law. I don't think there is anything wrong with that. Unless there's something I've left out, perhaps if there is a question and answer session, you can raise it, and that is all that I want to speak for now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Round of applause for Dr. Nyakundi. Just in addition to what my colleagues have said, please simplify that information. Law jargon store. Even when you are sending a press statement, please communicate. Don't speak to yourself. If you speak to yourself, the best a journalist will do, kwa sababu ataiweka kando. And maybe, so simplify it. Okay, quickly, we have some 10 minutes. I'm opening this. Any burning questions? Burning questions from the floor. Tafadhali. Ask these people questions, my panelists. Yeah?
Let me.
Prosecution, wachana watu wa magazeti ngoja. Yes. Watu wa magazeti hapana, wacha tuulizwe maswali, ya? Tafadhali. Yes.
Okay, I will make some comments. I think from the beginning, you talked about some advocates going to the public immediately after court to issue press statements just outside the courts. This is what we have done with this particular case. Let me tell you that as an office and as public officers, you might never see a prosecutor standing outside that court and issuing a statement, and it is for good reason. One, we are public officers. We are guided by the Leadership and Integrity Act, Chapter 6 of the Constitution. We don't seek publicity because we don't want clients. Those advocates want clients. I will not name them. They want to be seen in public, and we are guided by a code of conduct, and we want information to flow from a central point. We have a communications and public relations division. Let it come from there so that it can be the correct information. And the same applies when you call me in the morning and then I text you, please WhatsApp me or text me. And then you call my boss and he tells you the same thing, and then the game goes on. It will happen that way because let information come from a central point. So that it can be the correct position. And we are not saying we are not going to give you information. We have journalists. I think Paul, we are always with them in court. Some of them are attached to media houses, others are freelance. They ask for charge sheets. And because it's a public document, it's already been filed in court, we readily supply them. Immediately after plea, we supply them without any issues. But for press statements, you might never see one. Then, why not? We are asking, sometimes we see in newspapers, DPP loses bid to ... And then the story is just about what the court act says. We are requesting, can you also say the ODPP or the ODPP officer argued this way, the defense argued this way, and the court came to this conclusion? And then sometimes can you issue a commentary, because so that you don't report one side, because the end reporting, it's like the officer from the office of the DPP said nothing. So we would wish that you report comprehensively. We as an office, we want information to flow, and we don't have a problem with that so long as there is no distortion of the facts or misreporting and the like. So that's my take, and we are accessible. As I said, we have a public relations division, a communications division. Those are my comments for now. Before I give out the mic, DPP, they had asked for a contact person for media purposes. Maybe before we close, you will talk about that.
Yes. Yes?
Sorry,
Yes.
I just needed...
Stand up, please. We want to see you.
Sorry. I felt my name is Judy. one of the prosecution counsels in the ODPP, I felt I needed to raise a concern, being one of the prosecutors that handles matters in the anti-corruption division, which is a matter that we handle cases that actually attract a lot of public interest. And one of the observations we have made is that at most times, we end up reading matters either in the media or in the newspaper that are a complete distortion of the actual events in court. In fact, as much as yesterday there was that explanation that at times you twist it you can turn the words in another way, at that point when you're reading that newspaper, we end up actually being shocked as to whether you are actually the prosecutor in that court or whether you are imagining things, because it is not at all a representation of what happened. And at that point, I wonder, as you said, your editors, what measures do you put in place?
We are, please.
Sorry,
Can
yes,
assure
you
we
are
are.
editors. What measures do you put in place to just clarify that position? Another issue that has been raised is that issue of that we are unwilling to communicate or to communicate to the media when we are in court. I do agree with our senior has said, Mr. Mule, we actually represent an office, and we have an obligation to ensure that whatever information we give is proper and accurate. So, and also sometimes if we comment, it is not even said the way we said it. So to avoid us being misrepresented, we find that it is better for us to just avoid the issue in totality. But if we had that guarantee that it is possible for us to say something and it is quoted in the same way as we said it, then that would be a better option. The other thing is that we have noted that we have defense advocates. Most of our advocates are actually very professional. But in high-profile matters, you'll realize that there are advocates who are keen in prosecuting the matters in the media to conceal the fact that as the ODPP, we have a very strong case against the persons that are being accused in court. And therefore, they would always want to, in fact, if I can give an example, there's one case that we are handling that had all our witnesses under witness protection. And the advocate in that court was insisting and telling the court that you have to halt these proceedings because I will not make this application until the media comes to this court. And the court had to be so clear that these are protected proceedings and therefore you cannot allow the media. But they know that once they talk to you, you are likely to go and push their agenda. And what sadly happens in this position is that the public then again starts having contrary opinions as to the reality on the ground, which also taints the matter. The more publicized it becomes on the negative, also starts scaring our witnesses because they start being afraid of the attack. So we know that you represent and capture a huge public following. And it is so important that you help us to not taint the mind of the public.
Sawa sawa. Aha. I think
Now,
what were media?
Maybe, yes, maybe before
Yes.
the media or other people speak.
Mtu wa media
can I-
ngoja.
No,
Yes.
Hussein, let's exhaust the prosecutors so that we utilize the time properly. Now,
Yes.
I have some concern as well. Now, oftentimes we see stories in the newspapers for the first time. Why am I saying so? You cover what we call pleadings that have been filed in court. Now, you realize that at the point you are reporting, those pleadings have actually not been served on us. And the way that you report, there is some you find that there's a bit of finality in what you are reporting. You will be saying the DPP on the spot for A, B, C, D, and now you write the story there. You realize that that particular application, or if it is a petition, has not even been brought to our attention. And of course, the story will have absolutely no, our side of the story will not be in that. Now, is it too much to ask that before, please, you do this kind of stories, you wait and see whether we have been served and we have filed our replies, and then you'll be able to get your stories there. Because often these stories have got two sides. And when the public reads this, they form a permanent opinion that the DPP was on the spot without
thank you.
knowing that, and you never report that that petition was thrown out. At the first instance, the petition was found to be unmeritorious and the judge threw out. But you never report that. What remains on record is the fact that this was filed and this is the story that was there. And this is why those people run to the media and they tell you, we have just filed this, this and that, without hearing our side of the story. Now, secondly, the role of the media as we know it is to entertain, educate, and inform. The word accountability is missing, Mr. Wanyama.
No, it's there.
Maybe it is there because we have entities that do perform that role. Don't you think, therefore, that in your perhaps zeal to hold these institutions, including ours, to account, perhaps you are overstepping your mandate?
Like in what context, anyway? Let me.
No, because you say
Yes.
that one of your main concerns is to hold people to account, maybe public entities, to see whether they are performing their functions. Now, in so doing, don't you think there's an element of overstepping your mandate? Because we have set institutions that, for example, hold us account. And this is why you are found sometimes liable for libel or slander and that kind of thing.
Thank you. I think I'll give my panelists, I know they're burning to respond to such issues, and I know finally the big man will ask questions or we will do it. So my panelists, people are talking about...
Can you allow Mr. Hussein, please, to ask a question?
Please do it, kindly.
Thank you. I know when I introduced myself, I said Haki Africa TV, but that was on a light note. There's no Haki Africa TV. I'm just from civil society, so I'm not from the media. But mine, and I don't know if this is specific to the media, because we've also had this discussion in the morning with the criminal justice system, with the foot soldiers, and this is a concern that has been brought to us many, many times by the reporters. Their low remuneration, their working conditions. I think this is what contributes to corruption, the brown envelopes, because they are lowly paid. They are, in every way you look at it. And the editors, we are told that people who have that decision to charge in the media sector are in this room. And the investigators are out there. So if the investigators are out there working under, very poor conditions, what is your role as the people who make that decision to charge to ensure that your foot soldiers, your investigators are also taken care of so that they are able to give you or to deliver credible information for you to decide whether to charge or not? And again, this frenzy of politicians coming up with media stations everywhere, how objective are you in terms of communicating? Are you communicating on behalf of politicians? Because some information, as has been said here, it's so obvious. Like the report today in one of the, absolutely, we were here yesterday. He refuses calls to resign. And there was absolutely nothing here. So you wonder, we were all here.
Okay.
Is this serving a political interest? Are they reporting on behalf of a certain individual? So kindly, it will be important to consider these.
Okay, colleagues, we're on the receiving end, but I think even before I let my panelists respond to that, one thing I want to emphasize, especially our friends from the ODDP, is that the media, the professional media, the vibrant media that we have in Kenya, has to accomplish all those three things by observing integrity. We are not above, we don't operate above law. That's why I'm saying those could be teething challenges. But then, my panelists, people are talking about the media sensational reporting. Two, they're talking about, Mr. Msao talked about as the government, or rather public prosecutors, they're not seeking publicity, and therefore we shall wait. But I will remind you, news is perishable. News is perishable. So, Dennis Okari, quickly, just in 1 minute, just respond.
Okay, in 1 minute, I think I will attempt to answer Hussein's question and let Polilado to do the heavy lifting on the others, because I think he has the power to hire and fire. Truth be told, the media organizations we have in this country, and world over, they're businesses. And like any other business, it runs for profit in media organizations. Why? Yes, we have programs to entertain. We have the business side of this big business called this media organization. And therefore, when you're running into, for example, losses, or as you're chasing for profit, sometimes the wage bill can be so huge that you cannot afford to pay everyone the way they would want to be paid. Personally, I actually want more salary. I want more salary, but when I go to my boss, I'm told, just wait for 1 more year. If we perform better in our targets, then we might consider. So like everybody else, so the chain from where we sit as editors all the way to the foot soldiers, the correspondents and whatnot, is an issue that every media organization is dealing with. The pay obviously is not the same. Should it be better? Yes, it should be better. Does then that mean that if the pay is better, they will not be corrupted? I believe not. We have officials who sit in government positions who earn very good salaries. They have allowances, but they're still corrupt. So the issue of salary, when it's pegged to whether one can be corrupt or not, is not so much a salary issue. But I do admit, because I've been a reporter before, I started off with a 8,000 shilling salary. It was not enough, and this is 2003, when I was working for KBC as an example. So that was 8,000 then. Then it went to 10,000. I will not talk about today. However, just with the growth and the expansion in the media space, what we also realize is revenues are shrinking. There are so many media stations today. There are so many conflicts of interest. So to manage all those commercial interests, all the conflicts, and still be able to pay reporters and journalists well is a challenge. And it's not a Kenyan issue. I was working for the BBC, and he can tell you those are the same challenges. It's an international media organization, and you'd assume working for an international media organization, you're paid in hundreds and thousands of pounds, but it's not the case. So it's not necessarily a Kenyan issue where our local journalists are not being paid well. It's a global issue, and people are being laid off. The pandemic case is a classic example of a lot of people who've lost their jobs because of the business environment that we're in. We are getting into an election year. It's going to be extremely challenging because, again, during this period, revenue again shrinks. No one wants to advertise, and our bloodline is through advertising. So it's an issue. I don't have the powers to hire or fire, but I think these are issues that in our WhatsApp groups, in our offices, every day people are complaining of salaries, remuneration, working conditions, and we hope that one day we will get somewhere, but at the moment, still work in progress.
Yeah. Just in addition to that, colleagues here, especially those from KEG, could be privy to ongoing discussions about how to improve the welfare of our colleagues, particularly those working, those reporters and correspondents, the KUJ plus other key stakeholders, such as the Media Council, such as Kenya Correspondents Association. There are ongoing negotiations with media owners to see to it that at least once you are employed by a media house, there is some basic salary, some basic, however little, that you can budget on. So all is not lost. Now, please, the gentleman raised a very key issue here. Are we overstepping our mandate sometimes when we hold public officers to account? Are we overstepping our mandate? I don't think so, but karibu. Daktari, go first.
Thank you, Wanyama. I listened to Hassan in that comment, and I asked myself, if we are dealing with a criminal case, and the person is taken to court, obviously by the prosecution, which story will you read? It's going to be one-sided, and Hassan will not complain, isn't it? A plea is read, is taken. I'm saying you handle criminal cases, a person is taken to court, the plea is read out, and a decision is made whether to release the person on bail and so on and so on. You're going to read a one-sided story, isn't it? That story is going to be about the prosecution. It is not going to be about the defense. So at that point, I don't know whether you would be complaining about one-sided stories coming from the media, because they will be saying so-and-so was arraigned in court yesterday, charged with the following, blah, blah, blah. That is a prosecution story, isn't it? Now, at that point, you don't complain. But when the case begins, it is still a prosecution story. What the prosecution will be saying, and perhaps a defense counsel coming in to poke holes and here and there, because the defense hearing has not started yet. So that is still prosecution. Unless you are talking about other cases, for example, where someone moves to court, they have filed pleadings there at the registry and they have left. Of course, this filing has been done by a private practitioner who is going to call Sam, who is going to call Paul, and tell him, you know what, I've filed a case. At that point, there is no prosecution. So what story do you expect from the media? The media is going to run a one-sided story, because at that point you haven't filed anything. And it is not very clear in this country whether what the media is doing is right or wrong, because over time, that's what they've been doing. At least I did court reporting for a long, long time. So you have in the initial stages a one-sided story. Where I agree with you, and I think this is really something that the editors in the house should take up. If there is a trial and there are two sides to it, let us have stories which have the two sides. This is what the prosecution says, this is what the defense said. And I think that is what, personally, somebody who is in training, and I train journalists, reporters, and editors, that's what we emphasize. If there are two sides to a story, let's have them. If there is only one side, that's what we're going to run. Because you can't then rely on that which has not been presented. So whether at that point we are then overstepping our mandate, I don't know. But I think it is still the business of journalists to tell people this document has been filed and this is what it says. And I'm not sure they're going to say the DPP has not filed anything, because the DPP is not aware. So somebody cannot create a story, or you call the DPP and tell him, you know what?
Somebody has filed.
Somebody has filed. What will be in that story that the DPP says we are waiting to be served?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. As you respond, Paul, remember what Judy said, that we're giving more time to defense lawyers more than the councils, state councils for this matter. But I want to emphasize to my brother Musau that Kenya, where we are today, we are talking about free communication, free free and correct information has to be done on the spot. As I said, news is perishable. Let me tell you, not all work for print media. We have radio stations, we have TV stations. I mean, if you take me in circles and have a deadline to beat, honestly, the best I'll do as a responsible reporter is asked for comment, he declined. And remember, it's a comment. So please, just avail yourself. Ilado, why do you give more space to defense lawyers at the expense of state councils? Karibu-san.
I hope Judy is still here. Yeah, so let me start by responding to you, and of course, by extension, everybody else. It is not acceptable for any journalist to cook up a story. It is so serious that if that is what is found out, there's a chance that that person can lose their job. Now, I don't know whether you're talking about that, or you're talking about misinterpretation of the court proceedings. If the proceedings have been misinterpreted, I think every media house has a responsibility to correct them. So you have a channel, just call the editor, or call even the reporter himself or herself and say, look, you got these facts wrong. You know, I don't think there'll be anyone in this room who will be unwilling to correct the facts. Because like I said earlier, journalism is about the truth. And the truth is what guides us. We are seeking to report facts as they are, okay? It's not for us to imagine other things beyond what is in court. So if the court papers say it is whatever the case, that's what we should stick to. In fact, court reporting is extremely sensitive, that even the people we send to court are probably our best most of the time, because we expect them to be able to give us not just quality stories, but correct stories, okay? Now, there is a new problem in court, which I hope you've seen. The court has attracted all manner of people, okay? They are masqueraders, they are extortionists, they are all of them, and they all work in a chain, you know, from the court clerks to the police officers who come there, to prison officers, to people who are masquerading as journalists, okay? So you would end up dealing with one of those people who want to you, okay? Either they'll extort from you, or they will take that story and twist it the way they want, depending on who they've dealt with. I think you need to be able to realize, even if you're dealing with someone in court, who are you dealing with? All of us have accreditation. You can ask for it, so that you know that you're dealing with the right person. And if a media house has misreported, there's recourse for you. Just call the editor, and the editor would be able to correct that misrepresentation. We're also willing to explain a lot of things, Mr. Mule. Today, if you realize, all of us are doing explainers, okay? So if you're in court on this matter that you think is really, really important, it's technical, okay? I appreciate the fact that you want to be organized, but you know, like we've said consistently, news is time-bound, okay? We will not wait for you to go and put your papers together next week, okay? We will go with what we have, and you know, you come next week and we'll still give you a chance. The danger with that, Mr. Mule, is that by the time you come, the damage is done, okay? So you really have to think about how might you strike a balance between, you know, the way you've operated and the fast-moving news that is happening today. Obviously, I don't expect you to respond to everything. You know, I mean, it's not practical. But there must be one or two important matters that, you know, your voice has to be heard. Please note, when you go to court, there are two things you're seeking to do. You're seeking a conviction, okay? That's your main and core responsibility. But also, on the other hand, there's what you call court of public opinion. How do you manage that? Okay, so that in the end, you're able to achieve those two things. Like I said, you have many cases, you may not be able to do that all the time, but I think it's important to make the effort. The other thing, and as I finish, there's a lot of fake news going around every day, okay? There's a lot of fake documents going around, okay? Now, I think you need to realize as an office that you have a responsibility to supply correct documents to journalists. If you leave them to find these things, they may find correct ones, but they will also find the wrong ones, okay? So that tomorrow what you see is not what is in the affidavit. The affidavit has been doctored. It happens every single day. I think it's important that as a prosecutor, I mean, you know that this is an important matter, you want the facts out. I would like to ask you to make it part of your responsibility, okay? You can ask your permissions that you need to, so that you're able to supply those documents. I believe that when documents are filed in court, they become public documents, unless they're protected, okay? Therefore, you don't need permission from Public Service Commission to be able to give out those documents. I think let us make our lives a bit easier. Even as we're seeking to recover you, try and make it easier for us. The last thing I want to say is that we all have a challenge. Half of our newsrooms today are made of young people, okay? Some without experience, some, have just, they really have never covered courts. And unfortunately, because of the circumstances that we have sent some of those people to court, okay? Now, they walk in there. If they're able to learn quickly, then they end up with good stories quickly. If they are not, there is a chance that once in a while someone may mislead them or give them wrong information. Again, I cannot overemphasize that take it upon yourselves to be proactive. Because if you're going to react from behind, you'll not catch up with people, okay? The guys who are out there, who are malicious, who want to win in the court of public opinion are aggressive, and they stop at nothing. I don't expect you to compete with them, but I expect you to be able to provide the necessary information that is genuine, that is factual, that is of interest to the public.
Sawa sawa. Muda wetu unamalizika, but colleagues in the open, I think any strong additions, any interjections, strong interjections about the questions, the issues they have raised before I invite the DPP. Yes, Msau, I will give Msau, and then Ruth, then Muganda. Okay, let's begin with Msau. Huh?
Okay, since I have the mic, Wanyama,
yes.
Let me just quickly
Please,
allow
please.
me. Sorry.
1 minute, please.
Yeah, that quickly, sitting here, I see a few things. That, as Paul said, there are lots of quacks also operating as journalists at the courts. In the case of this Omari story, it was actually picked by the quacks who spread it around platforms, and that's how it came up. It's not, you can't say those were like really legit journalists. So how can the DPP's office work closely with MCK in matters of accreditation so that we validate and have a document that will allow people or people working as journalists into those premises? That's a question that goes to the office of the ODPP. He can respond to that. Then the other thing, I had somebody here say that we might never see press releases from the office of the ODPP. And I would like to say that's where, as Ilado has once again said, that we lose it because we want to get information flow from your office to know what is going on. So what we want to, if you think a press release could be difficult for you to do, can you at the end of a court case give us a summary of proceedings and tell us what are the next steps, what should we look up to? Who are the parties and what is happening, just to help, the young reporters that we are seeing are in these courtrooms who don't even understand the proceedings that have gone on there. Then if you can give us an opportunity, can you please help us get more exposed to court processes, especially for these young reporters? Give us a breakdown of, the life cycle of a case in court. It will help us a lot to know what role you're playing as a prosecutor, what role the judiciary is playing, and what role the parties to that litigation are playing. And it will broaden our perspectives also. So we learn every day. We can't say that we are all very smart and we have a preserve of all the knowledge. So help us. Asante sana Wanyama.
Msau, please.
Thank you.
45 seconds. Tafadhali.
Sawa.
Yes.
First of all, I think Ruth is already, she's already misquoting Mr. Mule live here. Mulle never said that we'll never get a press statement from the office of the DPP. There was a context to what he said. So that's in defense of Mr. Mulle. But the point I wanted to raise was the issue of what I think she raised, Eunice raised. And just to reinforce what Mr. Elado has already explained, I think if you find that there are cases or situations that we have either misunderstood your presentations or we have misunderstood what happened in court, please raise it. Like Paul is suggesting, we are not infallible. And we are also not, we can take corrective measures the earliest possible.
Okay.
So don't hold on to information like the one that you seem to have, that we have been misrepresenting you, and then you don't tell us, and we will never get the opportunity to correct. So please raise these issues with us. Most of you raise them anyway.
Okay.
All of us, let's raise them.
Okay, Muganda, Gle, please. 1 minute. Yeah? Give him a mic, please. But how come sometimes, even as Gle comes in, how come sometimes it's easy to get the DPP? Because I remember Ruth, when we used to call him, he comes even on phone. It's easy to get him, but his juniors, ningumu, eh? Ama you gag them, bwana. Okay, so okay.
I think 2 or 3 issues have been raised, and before that, I think Judy raised some issues about more or less like unfair coverage, and I've been trying to look for a headline for Judy's cry. Anyway, so the thing is, sometimes when we go to, when our court reporters, or rather when they're covering court, and Judy says that we tend to cover one side of the story, I want to believe probably we watch too much TV, and from what we see from these documentaries, TV, court documentaries and all that, are the times when maybe one side is what makes this, you call them submissions. So probably the defense makes the submissions and the prosecution, it's just what they filed. So we will go with what was said in court that day. So I think it's a bit unfair to say that we never cover both sides, but in the event that they actually, both of them made their submissions, I think we cover both. So another thing also, again, I think we watch too much foreign TV, that prosecutors cannot brief the press. I think we've always seen where, I think the Paul prosecutors or the district attorney, where they actually brief the press on the progress of the case, almost at every stage. So I think that is one thing we should embrace. But the last thing is that you say that we never ask you for information, but at some point here, you made an admission that you don't have public communications. You have an office for that, but you don't have a communication specialist. So I think that is also one thing. If you want to have this communication between you and the media to be flawless, you will need to strengthen that office.
Strengthening of the office of...
Yes, one more thing this gentleman raised, and I hear it all the time, the gentleman from Haki Africa TV, which does not exist. There's this thing that people raise all the time. Journalists are paid poorly. How much is enough pay? Nobody says that. And this is something I hear all the time, and I hear it also from even fellow journalists who probably used to be in the newsroom and left.
Yes.
Journalists are paid poorly. How much? There are people in this country who probably make 50 million from a corrupt deal, and they still continue making, still being corrupt. So poverty cannot be an excuse for corruption.
Exactly.
It shouldn't.
That's a good parting shot.
Another thing is, media houses are owned by politicians.
Please.
What is wrong? Why do we try to demonize this thing that a politician is not supposed to own a media house?
But even in developed countries, most media houses are owned by politicians and seasoned business people.
And we've tried to make it something like, when you kill stories, it's because a politician called you. I've been in the newsroom for around 10, 15 years. I kill stories for a living. I have never been called for by a politician to kill a
Thank
story.
you.
That is what I
Thank
do.
you,
I
Clay.
kill stories, not dreams.
Sawa bana, sawa. Thank you so much. Mpigie makofi huyo jamaa. Now, guys, a burning one, eh? Okay, 20 seconds, tafadhali. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is important, and I'm speaking as a TV journalist. It all involves about production of a story, and this is probably what makes the defense side sometimes appear like they are getting more airtime than the prosecution. They have understood that our courts are not properly lit, and we don't get good sound in those courts. So what they do after the session, they come out and give out good bites with clear sound and good lighting. But then what happens to the prosecutors? They can't speak to the media, so they walk away. So when that story will be coming at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m., of course, the person who gave the clear sound bite is the one who will get the up sound. Thank you.
Please avail yourselves kindly to the media. And now, yes?
Yeah, you're ignoring someone.
Oh, sawa. I'm coming back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
As we approach the general election,
Yeah.
government agencies are doing much to counter the narrative, the toxic narrative of hate. However, we don't see that in the headlines. We only see a lot of politics in the headlines. How can we increase visibility of what government agencies are doing? We can be driven by ethics, not necessarily by profitable interests. For example, there is a Kivumbi on KTN. That sounds a bit inciting. Politics is not supposed to be Kivumbi. Kivumbi suggests that there will be fighting and a lot of struggle and all that. So you can also develop opinion. The media can shape public opinion. So we want to see you shaping public opinion as we approach the general elections. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I know my colleagues will respond to that, but let me tell you, these are students of semantics. And, you know, we thrive and we are paid so well for semantics purposes. Nah, Kivumbi is just part of it. So I know they will do it. So, but take note of that, about hate speech, why we are not doing enough, according to him. Now, Bwana DPP. Tuulize maswali before I let my panelists or comments. And please tell us why you are available, but your juniors wanasema lazima wapate idhini.
Hiyo utawauliza wao wenyewe, sijui kwa nini. Sijawahi kuwakataza. Thank you. I think I came a bit late. I had gone for Friday prayers and got stuck in town. I was able to get a little bit at the end, and I think somebody talked about broken chain, and that it's so broken at a certain end that it might not be repairable. But I think if those who are not broken and are trying to work, if they are assisted to ensure that that part of the chain that is still strong is even stronger, I think it will affect the broken part of it, so that they will be compelled to either repair, weld, or do whatever it is to make sure that they come at par. And that's why we came up with this decision to charge guidelines. They're very clear, and it hasn't been easy, but we are really trying to struggle to force, because once the decision to charge guidelines are adhered to, then you are likely to see that some of these incidences will reduce substantially, because they'll be required to bring evidence. They'll be required to ensure that they can explain, how did we arrive at this? How is it that we have individuals who are probably innocent who have been kept maybe for more than 24 hours, or you have individuals who are injured and have been brought to court. That will be the eventual natural progression of a successful decision to charge that will be able to ask those questions from the individuals that are involved in investigations or bringing the files to prosecutors. So one way of ensuring that we are able to repair is to ensure that we strengthen this part of the chain, and hopefully also the other part. We as prosecutors are referred to as gatekeepers. So nothing really can come to the judiciary before it passes through the prosecutors. And if we can be able to be strong enough, then those incidences will not be able to come into that gate. And this is where we want you to understand and to be able to assist us to do that. My question is, as a reporter, I think he said he had accompanied, so I was thinking, what did you do about it? After that lady was chapwad, amepigwa, ameumizwa, amechukuliwa, what did you do? Did you go and report to the police? Was there an OB? Because, you also have to assist us. Or did you also cover that story? Because that's the other flip side of the coin. Usijali, I'm not putting you on the spot. I was just thinking, probably you have the answer. But that's one way you can help us. Report it. Take them to task. So that we can be able to stop some of these actions that are occurring. I think Zhao captured it very well with the colleague, but I also wanted to ask. I don't remember him saying that we had refused to be accountable. Aliuliza questions. Sahi ulikuwa umesema, I think when you were handing the mic to Paul, that Hassan here was somehow saying that we had refused to be accountable. If you look at the story in People, yesterday he had come to me. Nikamwambia mnyinyi people amutupendi. And you can see the story today. I didn't even allude to the fact that mimi sitaki kutoka ofisi. We didn't even discuss that. But the heading of the People, let me read it to you. Haji tells off critics over calls to resign. Did I even talk about resignation yesterday?
No.
You see, sasa hii mutasema nini, na leo nyinyi mko hapa. Nyinyi wenyewe mlikuwa hapa. Sasa hii ndio story jamaa yetu alifile Nairobi. You see, and then if you read part of it, more than half of the article, I didn't even talk about that case. And I remember saying that we are gagged, isn't it? And the only thing that I refer to is that we were being stopped from having this event. And that you have a constitutional mandate to do this, all of us. So these are some of the things that really make us cringe. Because even if Judy would have come to the reporter and said, still, you would still get something different. I think the issue of ethical journalism is very important. And you as editors really are the ones who can ensure that. Again, you also have a chain yourselves. So if you can strengthen at that, where now, as he said, nyinyi ndo mna decide, you make the decision to charge. If you can be a little bit strict and ask for more details, it would be good. Professor Daktari hapa alikuwa amesema, if you go to court and somebody has filed, we have not filed yet, what will you report? I think at the end you can have a line saying, the DPP is yet to reply. What is wrong with that? At least the reader will be well informed that this is a one-sided story. We are waiting for the DPP's reply, or the ODPP's reply. that way, it would be good. Because even when we charge somebody in court, huyo mtu ataambiwa, we are charging you for this and this and this and this and this. What do you say? They'll say not guilty. So they still have that opportunity. Lakini sisi mkienda kufile, hiyo opportunity bado. At least it should be made a little bit clearer that DPP ata reply, tutaona vile atasema. Something like that. I think that would be important. You know, I'm looking at some of the cases. Kama kesi ya Waluke. Hata sioni nyinyi hata mkikava hiyo kitu kabisa. Huyo ni mtu tumeconvict. Ako in parliament. The other day we were there, the media was there. We were called by PSC, Public Accounts Committee. And they had the audacity of telling us, munafanya nini? Sasa mimi nikawauliza, and nobody covered that. And I asked, you people as the PSC, you are asking us and you are auditing us, yet one of your members is a convict. Because he is, even if he has bail. And that itself is an anomaly. Even if he has bail. Your appeal yake haja succeed, he's still a convict. How is it that you people are not covering that and you're not sensitizing the public that you have a convicted person sitting in the PSC? And Parliament is not flinching. Nobody is flinching. Everybody is just comfortable. Hebu sasa mtuambie, sisi kama prosecutors, tukizungumza paka koi na tukauka, what do we do? You're not covering it. Is that mtuambie nyinyi ndo ma-editors? Ama ni ma-reporter zenyu wamepata kachai ndo hiyo reporter hata ikuji? You know, that day I was actually sitting on the TV kasema leo wacha tuone. Nothing. It was silent. So mimi nawauliza sijui mtaniambia nini? I didn't have to invite you. You were there. Because it was parliament, it was a session. We were there, ESCC was there, the Auditor General was there. They were calling us the Big Nine. We were there. But it was amuku cover vile inafaa. Ilipita tu, it was just like a wind tu hapo. No, but not the way. I think if it was me, ingekuwa headline the rogue DPP or something like that. You know? So sometimes these things actually puzzle us. How is it that we don't seem to be getting, even when we strive, we don't seem to be getting a balanced coverage. I think I note what Daktari also said about being accessible to the media. This is one reason why we're here, and we'll strive to be a bit more accessible. But of course, with some of those incidences, we will be shy when you try and it's not coming out the way it should. It doesn't have to come out the way we want, but at least the message to the public, when we make valid points, they should come out validly to also sensitize the public on what is really happening. We used to give media briefs until we were called slay queens. Then we became shy. We stopped giving media briefs. Tutaangalia hiyo, tutaninio. I think workshop and sensitization will work on that. One thing that I was thinking is we now have our prosecution training institute, maybe together with the guild and some other of your organizations, we can come up with causes on working jointly and sensitizing the reporters, and we can take them through some of the things, which then they will be able to pick when they're in court much easily, especially for court reporters. We can work on that. I think one thing that I noted was that Paul had said our responsibility is to get convictions. really, our responsibility is to ensure that access to justice is given to each and every Kenyan. And it's not to get convictions. Convictions is a plus. I mean, it's something that all of us would aspire. But even when we don't get convictions, what we ensure is that the parties had the opportunity to access justice. And that's what is expected of us. So getting a conviction is good, but not getting it sometimes is also good, because that person is innocent. And at least the parties got the opportunity to sit in court and argue it out. And that is what we facilitate and ensure that that it is done. So conviction is not always the desired result. Please note that. The ultimate result is that we ensure you get access to justice. I think finally, I've also noted what Ruth said in relation to accreditation to court. Of course, we don't control court, but I will bring this matter to the NCAJ, the National Council on Administration of Justice, which is chaired by the Chief Justice, that we start now accrediting journalists in court. With those few words, I want to say that we appreciate the work of the media, and that's why we're here. I've always said that I don't mind being criticized, because being criticized also puts you on your toes, and it allows us to rectify ourselves where we've gone wrong. So we really appreciate you, and we look forward to working with you. Hopefully we'll come up with the resolutions tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mpigie makofi Ndosi. Okay, as I give each strictly a minute to my panelists, please. Waluke case. Why is it passive? Why didn't we raise? Maybe call in experts. Answer that. And then also, one DPP, there was an issue that has been raised severally by colleagues here, that a suggestion that perhaps we should have a contact person from the communications department who can handle all the concerns, all the demands of journalists. You will think about that. Then there is this question: what happens if a journalist violates code of ethics, the procedures? So, Okari, strictly 1 minute, please. Where is the mic? Closing remarks.
Thank you. My simple answer to your question is, I think every media organization has its code of conduct, their house style and how they do things, disciplinary cases, how they're handled by the HR, the corrective measures that are necessary when we have those kind of situations. We've had journalists who've been fired because of carrying out stories that one are cooked or sponsored and that sort of thing. So these are things that are normal in any newsroom, because we abide by the code of conduct and the ethics that we follow when we're carrying out these stories. It's very, very clear, and if anyone crosses the line, then you'll just lose your job. To just finish off my remarks is to answer a question about elections. Just maybe to point out, you may or may not be aware that when we are covering these political stories, especially during this season, politics in Kenya, they're very divisive in nature. It's not something that is new. And what I think most of the media houses, what they've done is they have even banned specific politicians. I know of our own place where we discuss these things in the newsroom, and we say, this is absolutely wrong. It may have gone on air, but then as part of the corrective measures, we say, this is becoming now, is getting out of hand, it's insightful, and we make those decisions, and we actually ban these politicians from coming to our shows or even going to cover them. So that is something that we are very keen on as we inch closer to the election. Now, when it comes to the politicians who own media organizations, I may disagree with my good friend and colleague, Clay, on the other end. When we make this comparison with the US, and to some degree I get Hussein's concern, is when a politician owns a media organization, then we all know what is currently happening in the country. We all know how impartial or partial media organizations can get. But our democracy is so young. In America, it's 245 years, I think. Their politics, they are a bit mature until maybe recently. So the way you see their news organizations operate, they've gone through the cycles. And I strongly believe where we are today, they were there many years ago. So they have overcome those challenges. We are yet to get there. However, the influence of some of these politicians who own these media organizations, they are so real. And when we are called out, it's when we are called out because somebody has noticed something on TV or listened to something on radio or print, it's actually correct. And sometimes we are also cornered because we are paid by the same people. I remember just 1 minute. I remember an example when I was a young reporter. This is a true story. So I will not mention the media organization. So I've gone out to cover a political rally. It was during an election period. I'm a young reporter in the newsroom covering politics. I go out, I come back with the sound bites. 4 politicians spoke in that event. So objectively, I'm writing my script. I hand over my script to the editor, and I cover my piece. I drive, I go home. As I go home, I am called by the managing editor. I am told, turn back, go back to the office. Is there a problem? They said, there's something wrong with your scripting. And I sought to find out what's wrong with my script because everything the way I wrote in that story was actually factual. Then what the managing editor told me, there are silent laws that operate in this company. Why did you upsound this person as the 4th or the last person in your story? At that point, I didn't get it. Then they asked me, so who is this person you've upsounded up here? It is this politician. And the second one is this politician. And the third one is this politician. And who did you put last? It's this politician. Wow. Who pays your salary? Then that's when it dawned on me and it hit me. Then I was like, can you go correct? Put him as the first soundbite, give him a longer period of time in the story. Then now wengine wanaweza kufuata. And I'm a young reporter. So these are the realities we also face in the newsrooms. And they will take time before they change, but that's the reality.
But we strive to remain professional, by the way. I can tell you another one. At the BBC, I don't know where Ruth is. There's a silent rule. When the Queen, she speaks in English, and the BBC has so many language services. Let me tell you, even if it's a Kiswahili bulletin, and she has spoken for about 2 minutes, and the BBC decides we're going to run that. Do you know what? No voiceover. No comma. Utatoa comma yote. Inaenda hivyo ya Kiingereza yote. So one day, as he rightly puts it, innocently nikauliza, but why didn't we do a voiceover kwa nini ya Queen? Nikaambia, okay, we'll go to Bungoma kwenda kuchunga ng'ombe. So these things happen. Yeah, but as I said, we are professionals. We strive to remain professionals. Ilado, a minute, please.
DPP, I think we've taken note of some of the things that you've said. I'm sure my colleagues have done the same, and where they need to correct certain things, I'm sure they will. I think in the long run, we all understand that we need each other. It's important that we try continuously to keep the channels of communications open. This relationship sometimes may be rough. And it can be so rough that, you wake up in the morning and your blood pressure shoots. But it's not the end of it. I think let's find ways, amicable ways, to keep talking to each other and resolve emerging issues as we go. We don't live in a perfect society, and I'm sure all of us are human. We will make mistakes. And I think it's only normal and should be the case that when we make mistakes, we acknowledge them and we correct them. Finally, I want to say that I think for all of us, justice must remain part of every story, criminal-related story that we are working with. In the end, the reason why Okari was looking for that doctor is because he was looking for justice. That's why we go out. When Hussein, goes out to Garissa and finds bodies dumped in some river, you get it? He's looking for justice, and he'll go there with journalists and we'll tell the story. So ultimately, we are in it together. I think for me, how can we strengthen that as we go along? That would be the winning point that we need to find, so that we don't look at each other as adversaries. We look at each other as complementaries. You have a story to tell, we have a story to tell. At some point, we will need to link up somewhere so that this story is complete. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Daktari, Max, please.
Thank you. Mine is really an appeal to the editors in the House. Let us be guided by our code of conduct. Number one is on accuracy. Let us not distort. Let us not manufacture stories. Let us get it right the first time. I know we are capable and we can do it. And to the DPP, I think what I need to say is that if we are grieved by the manner in which a story has been packaged, like what you are saying today, I think the best thing is not necessarily the DPP calling the media house, but if you have a communication department, that is their business. You should just raise that issue, and I'm sure a media house would always correct the mistake that they have made. And in that way, of course, then you have a better relationship. And for the DPP, my appeal on behalf of my colleagues in the media, please, if you are somewhere like an ivory tower, just calm down a bit, one step. Just one step. Don't always suspect journalists that they are about to mess you up. Calm down and speak at their level. The training is different. You are lawyers, you are happy when things are not very transparent, but that's not what journalists are looking for. They want that transparency. So if you can just calm down and explain, your life would be very good in the public. Thank you.
Round of applause for my panelists, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Wanyama and your panelists. We really appreciate your input. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know it's getting a bit late. There's a tea very quickly for about 10-15 minutes, and we come back for a short session with Paul. Paul has something to share with us. We'll find out what that is. Something on about communication